Stop waiting. Live as if it's already yours. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly believed? Not hoped, not wished, not prayed, but actually believed in your bones, in the silent depth of your chest, that what you want is already real. If you had to think about that, then everything I'm about to tell you is for you, because there's something most people do their entire lives, something so automatic, so invisible, they don't even recognize it as a habit. They wait. They wait to feel good until the relationship arrives. They wait to feel confident until the money shows up. They wait to feel free until circumstances finally change. They wait to feel worthy until someone else proves it to them. They outsource their inner world to an outer reality that never catches up. And here's the thing that's going to shake you, that waiting isn't patience. It's not wisdom. It's not strategy. It's a prison. And what's worse, you built it yourself. There was a man who spent years studying something that most of science, most of psychology, and most of religion still doesn't know what to do with. His name was Neville Goddard, born in Barbados in 1905, son of a modest family, moved to New York to study theater, and somewhere in that restless, searching life, he discovered something that he would spend the rest of his existence trying to give to anyone who would listen. He didn't call it the law of attraction. He didn't call it visualization. He didn't call it manifestation, that word that today fills millions of videos and books and courses, usually stripped of its real depth. He called it the law of assumption. And the difference is everything. Because assumption isn't desire. Assumption isn't goal setting. Assumption isn't trying. Assumption is being. It's inhabiting the reality you want as if it already is. Right now. Not someday. Not when things align. Now. The question isn't, how do I get there? The question Neville was asking is, who do I have to be for there to be no gap between me and what I want? Let that sit for a moment, because if that question lands the way it's supposed to, your whole way of moving through life starts to tremble. Here's what most people don't understand about their own minds. You don't create from what you want. You create from what you assume to be true. Read that again. You don't create from desire. You create from assumption. And assumptions aren't the big, bold thoughts you have in moments of motivation. Assumptions are the small, quiet, almost invisible conversations you have with yourself all day long. It's the way you sigh when you check your bank account, the way you hesitate before you speak in a meeting, the way you brace yourself slightly when someone gets too close emotionally. Those little gestures, those micro-reactions, that's your assumption. That's your operating belief. And your subconscious doesn't care about your vision board. It doesn't care about your affirmations. If your assumptions haven't changed, it only responds to what you truly inhabit. Think about this for a second. Imagine a person who grew up in a house where money was always scarce. Not just financially, energetically scarce. Every conversation about money had tension in it. Every time they asked for something, there was a calculation, a hesitation, a worry. That person grows up, gets educated, works hard, does everything right. But inside, deeply wired into their neurology, is a quiet signal. Not enough. There is never enough. You have to fight for everything. The floor can fall out from under you at any moment, and that signal runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, underneath every thought they consciously choose to have. They can write their goals every morning. They can read every book. They can hustle until they're exhausted. But as long as that assumption is running, the subconscious will find a way to validate it. Will find the chaos. Will repel the abundance. Will create the evidence that confirms what it already believes. This is what Neville saw, and this is what he was trying to break open. The outer reality is never the problem. The outer reality is just the echo. The problem is always the inner assumption that created the echo in the first place. Now here's where it gets really uncomfortable. And stay with me here, because this is the part most people skip. The part that, if you actually absorb it, will rearrange something inside you. Neville taught that imagination is not separate from reality. That imagination is the only reality, and that everything you experience in what you call the real world is first built inside you as an assumption, as a felt sense state, as something you inhabit. So when you imagine what you want but you don't feel it as real, you're not using your imagination. You're just daydreaming. You're looking at the life you want from the outside, as a tourist, as a spectator. And here's the brutal truth. Your subconscious doesn't manifest what you look at. It manifests what you live as. There's a difference so vast, so important, and so misunderstood that it accounts for why most people who try to manifest things get so little, so slowly, so frustratingly. They visualize from the outside. They see themselves in the picture like they're watching a movie of their future life. But Neville said, no, you don't see yourself in the picture. You see from inside the picture. You feel the weight of it, the texture of it, the smell of it. You don't observe the life you want, you assume it, you wear it. The sensation of the wish fulfilled, he called it. Not the image, the sensation. And this is the entire technique. This is the whole secret wrapped inside 4 words. Assume the feeling now. I want to tell you about a person who understood this. Not a famous person, not a billionaire, just someone caught in the same loop most people are. Call her Maria. Maria had spent 3 years applying to positions that would actually use her talent. 3 years of interviews that went nowhere, offers that fell through, moments where it seemed like it was finally going to happen, and then it didn't. She had done the vision boards. She had journaled. She had done gratitude practices. She had said the affirmations every morning in front of the mirror, looking at her own eyes, trying to believe them. But something never clicked. Because when she sat with herself honestly, and this is rare, this kind of honesty, she realized that every single technique she was using from a place of wanting, from a place of not yet, from a place of reaching for something that was still out there, still separate from her. The subtle vibration underneath every affirmation was, I hope this works, please let this work, I need this to work. And that vibration, that undercurrent of lack, was what her subconscious was reading, not the words, the undercurrent. One night, completely exhausted, she stopped trying. She lay down and just imagined, not visualized and imagined from the inside. She felt what it would feel like to already have the position, not the ceremony of getting it, not the dramatic moment of celebration. Just a random Tuesday. What does a random Tuesday feel like when you're already in the life you want? She felt the particular kind of tiredness that comes from work that actually means something to you. She felt the quiet satisfaction of using her mind fully. She felt the way her body would stand, how she would talk, the specific texture of that reality, and she stayed there, without asking for it, without reaching for it, without checking if it was coming. She just assumed it. 3 weeks later, she had the offer. Now, that's not magic, it's not mysticism, it's not a fairy tale. What changed was the signal she was sending, the assumption she was living from. And when that changed, her behavior changed in ways too subtle to consciously track. How she carried herself in conversations, what opportunities she allowed herself to pursue, what she was willing to ask for. The outer world doesn't respond to your wishes, it responds to your state. So the real question, and I want you to stay with this, I want you to really sit with it, is this. What are you actually assuming right now? Not what do you want. What do you assume is true? Because you can say you want love, and still assume, in the deep architecture of your nervous system, that you're not really someone people choose to stay with. You can say you want success and still carry a quiet belief that people like you, from your background, with your history, with your particular shape of brokenness, don't really get to have it. You can say you want peace and still be completely habituated to chaos, to the point where calm feels foreign, suspicious, like something that must be broken eventually. These are the real assumptions, and they're not sitting in your conscious mind where you can easily examine them. They're sitting in your body, in your reactions, in the half-second hesitation you feel before you say what you actually think, in the stories you tell about why things didn't work out. Neville was ruthless about this. He didn't have time for excuses. He would say, the world you experience is the world you are, not the world you want, the world you are. And if you don't like what you're experiencing, the only honest thing to do is stop arguing with the reflection and change what's standing in front of the mirror. Now here's the part that trips everyone up, including people who've been studying this for years. Assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled is not pretending. It's not lying to yourself. It's not toxic positivity. It's not ignoring reality. Let's be precise about this, because the confusion here is costly. Pretending would be saying, I have $1 million, while knowing you're broke and feeling nothing except the dissonance between the statement and what you believe. Assuming is different. Assuming is, I am the kind of person for whom abundance is natural. I am the kind of person who creates value. I am the kind of person who attracts the right partnerships. Not I have these things, I am this person. The identity shift first. The reality follows, because your subconscious doesn't manifest circumstances. It expresses identity. It creates the experiences that are consistent with who it believes you are. So the technique, the real technique, is not to think positive thoughts. It's to become the person for whom positive results are natural, to stop performing that person and start inhabiting that person, to make that assumption so real, so consistent, so embodied, that there is no gap anymore between who you are and what you're living. Neville called this dying to the old self being the version of you that was defined by past conditions, the version that took its identity from what happened to it. That version has to be released, gently, completely, without drama. Not fought or released, because fighting the old self is still the old self. It's just the old self in combat mode. What Neville described is more radical than that. It's simply stepping into the new one, like changing rooms. No negotiation, no gradual transition. The decision precedes the evidence. Here's something I want you to understand about time. Most people live in what you could call reverse time. They wait for something to happen in the future, and only then they allow themselves to feel the emotional state that corresponds to it. When I get the relationship, I'll feel loved. When I get the money, I'll feel secure. When I get the recognition, I'll feel worthy. This is the architecture of most human experience. And it is, as Neville would say, exactly backwards, because in reverse time, you're always a prisoner of circumstances. You've handed the keys of your inner world to an outer world that is itself just the echo of your inner world. You're waiting for the echo to change before you change the voice, and it will never ever work. The only direction creation actually moves is from inside to outside, from assumption to circumstance, from state to reality. That's not philosophy. That's the structure of how consciousness works. Neville would say, time is an illusion of the mortal mind. The reality you want already exists, not as a future event, as a parallel state, and the only question is whether you will assume yourself into alignment with it, or keep waiting for it to descend upon you from outside. The reality already exists. You just have to stop waiting to be worthy of it. You have to assume it. Now, let me be direct with you. The hardest part of everything I've told you today is not the technique. The technique is actually simple. Before you sleep tonight, imagine from the inside of the life you want. Feel it as real. Assume it. Let that be the last signal your subconscious receives as you drift into sleep, when the barrier between conscious and unconscious mind is thinnest. That's the technique. The hard part is the honesty it requires, because to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you have to first be willing to see clearly the assumption you're currently living. And many people, most people, would rather keep doing the techniques than actually look at that. They'd rather visualize for 10 minutes and then spend the rest of the day operating from unconscious scarcity. They'd rather say the affirmation and then confirm the old story in every conversation they have, because looking at the real assumption, the deep one, means acknowledging something uncomfortable. It means admitting that in some way you have been choosing the limitation. Not consciously, not cruelly to yourself, but choosing it, because it felt safer than the unknown of actually having what you want. Because what happens if you have what you want, and it still doesn't fill the emptiness? Because what happens if you succeed and people expect more of you than you can deliver? Because what happens if you love fully and lose it? Because what happens if you finally become who you always said you wanted to be, and there are no more excuses and the responsibility is total? Your subconscious knows this, and it holds you back not out of cruelty, but out of a kind of primitive protection. Neville's answer to that is both simple and devastating. The only way out is through, not around, not by technique. Through the discomfort of assuming something your old patterns say isn't real, through the strange vulnerability of inhabiting a state before you have any external evidence for it, through the quiet, private act of believing in yourself at a level you've never been fully willing to commit to. This is the work, not the vision board, not the journaling, not the 3 to 6 9 method or the scripting or the pillow method. Those can be useful tools, but they are tools. in the hands of the person doing the work. And the work is assumption. The work is identity. The work is deciding fully and without negotiation who you are. One last thing. Neville Goddard died in 1972. He spent the last years of his life teaching in Los Angeles to small audiences, long before the internet, long before any of this became a movement. He was, by many accounts, not famous in the conventional sense, not a household name, not a best-selling author in his lifetime. But what he understood, what he kept trying to say in every lecture, in every book, in every conversation, was this: you are not a small thing waiting for permission. You are consciousness itself, temporarily wearing the costume of limitation. And every time you choose to wait, to let circumstances dictate your inner state, you're giving your power away to a world that never asked for it and doesn't know what to do with it. Stop waiting. Stop treating your inner world as a reward for your outer circumstances. Assume it now, not because it's easy, because it's the only thing that's actually real. The life you want isn't somewhere out there, waiting to descend upon you if you're patient enough, good enough, lucky enough. It's an assumption away. It always was. So here's where this ends. Not with a conclusion, but with a question I want you to carry with you. What would today look like if you fully assumed, without evidence, without waiting, without needing it to be proven to you first, that you are already exactly who you need to be? Don't answer with your mind, let your body answer. And then live from that. That's the whole thing. That's all it ever was. If something in this reached you, if something in what I said caught on something in you, then share this with someone who's still waiting, because someone out there is one conversation away from stopping, and that conversation might be this one.